I thought I'd read the first story of Seafood and Cocktails today. It's the Aquarius story, and it's called If Wishes Were Fishes. She had straight silver hair that reached the back of her knees when she had them. The air was cool, and the string of pearls lining her body looked astounding. She was a goddess sprung before me, and for a while I was certain she was the answer to all my prayers, to all the times I lay on the beach looking up at the stars, hoping for something certainly out of my reach. I was walking on the beach near the diner called Seafood and Cocktails, though that wasn't its name. I always took a seat by the window, right in front of the neon sign. The high stool let me rest my feet on the round iron frame underneath the bar stool, while I adamantly stared at the sea, hoping to have a quiet dinner. The ocean made me feel calm, and it gave me the sensation that I was somehow in charge of my life, in spite of everything. They used to have a shrimp dish that I craved ever so often. I would make the time, especially when I was on my period, and I would sit there for a while, eat my food, drink my beer, and stare at the sea, hoping to forget all my troubles. This day was no different. I wanted to get away from the noise of the life I felt was no longer mine. I wanted to get back to something old, something familiar. And I sat there by the window, feeling instant rage at the fact that my favorite dish was no longer on the menu. I ordered the dish the waitress told me I'd love if I'd liked the old shrimp dish, and then I proceeded to glare angrily at the Pacific Ocean. It's not like the Atlantic, though its rage and its power is just as potent and prominent. There's a reason it's named the Pacific. There's something tranquil about its hostility, a light above it, or a nuance to it that brings you peace and calm. It relays a promise. I saw her walking along the shoreline, carefully placing her feet in the sand, her hips swaying softly back and forth as she gazed out at the open water. Then she curiously glanced over her shoulder, took a peek at the land behind her. I gobbled down my food, ignoring the divine smell, not noticing if the dish was as good as the one that I had been craving. At that point, I didn't care. I just wanted to eat up so I could go out there and get a close look at her. I didn't finish my beer, just ate till I was full, and then I quickly left $20 under the dish, which would cover the meal and more. Then I went out onto the pier. She was still standing by the shoreline, taking insecure steps back and forth, curiously glimpsing the city to the right, as if she was seeing it for the first time. I didn't think, didn't wonder, just went down the steps of the pier and walked steadily over the sand with the wind in my hair. The smell of seaweed and something sweet filled my senses, and the stars up above made me fearless. She was a vision, and hardly a real human being. I felt sure of it. When I got closer, I noticed the unnatural aura about her, an argent glimmer that reminded me of a beautiful neon guppy I had as a kid. But then it was already too late. I had to know more about her. She had reeled me in. She looked at me, the silver in her hair glimmering like the ocean behind her, the seaweed delicately braided in between the straight locks of hair. She looked at me, at first hesitant, almost afraid, but then a certainty flared up in her eyes, and I could see the emerald focusing on me. I felt the attention like a storm reaching in my blood. She tilted her head, looked as I approached, waiting patiently for me to greet her. I noticed how she licked the salt of her lips, smiling, a delicate, furtive smile. "Hi," I said, suddenly feeling shy, quiet. She didn't answer, just kept smiling, showing me her pearly white teeth, sharp and pointy, like those of a shark. I wondered if she had rows of them, like they do, and if she had them for the same reasons sharks do. And I found myself imagining what it would be like to touch those turquoise lips, and caress her pale cheek. "Hi," I said again, trying to establish myself, trying to find a calm in my raging mind. I felt strained, a pull I knew I should resist, but I couldn't. This was an opportunity to do something unique, to gather all the wishes I had ever made in my life and make horses of them. She started walking, always keeping her feet in the water. The cold didn't seem to bother her, neither did the fact that the waves splashed up on her dress. It looks like something you would wear to a fabulous movie gala and not to a trip to the sea. "What do you want with me?" I asked, feeling an instantaneous regret at the words as the words trailed out of my mouth. "What makes you think I'm here for you?" she asked kindly. She had such a beautiful face, but whenever her teeth became visible, a cold shiver ran down my spine. "Well, we're here, aren't we?" She nodded, looking down into the sand for a while. It was as if she conducted herself on a different pace than I did, at a different speed. Everything about her was slow, tranquil, deliberate. Yet I knew that underneath lay the urgency and the energetic power of the Pacific Ocean. "You're not from around here, are you?" she asked. "Not originally, but I am now. I've been here a long time." "I met you somewhere else, a long time ago," she mused. I took my hand. "You were such a pretty child, with such a beautiful braided hair." She ran her fingers through my hair, lifted it up, and let it fall back into place, my curls dancing. Her words startled me. I tried to pull my hand away from her, tried to get away, but she wouldn't let me. "Relax," she said. "I'm not going to hurt you. It's too late for that." "I don't remember you. I would remember you if I had met you before, I'm sure." But I wasn't sure. "It was a different shore a long time ago," she said. "You had been separated from your mother, who was somewhere further up the beach shouting your name. You found my hand and I gave you something. Something precious." The memory of her smile dawned on me. The memory of this mesmerizing, tantalizing creature reborn in my head, as if it had been there forever, lurking underneath the surface of my consciousness. "I admire you." She threw her hair back, its silver strands, which danced like the air around her, an aquatic quality to them, somewhat betraying the loss of gravity. "Even as a small child, you knew what you wanted, and when I promised magic and adventures, you simply told me no and ran back to your mother." A dam broke inside me as I recalled the incident. A cold, dark beach on the shore of the North Atlantic Ocean. A harsh autumn day, and then this creature stood in front of me, just out of the water, in all her glory. That was back when the world was still fantastic and everything was possible. Back when I actually thought trolls lived under bridges and mermaids lived in the ocean. I had no idea that the darkness you fight throughout your life always comes from the depths inside of you. "I gave you something," she told me in her slick aquatic voice. "I gave you something and I expect you're here to repay me." As she asked, I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to kiss those lips, what it would be like to dare run my tongue inside the mouth of someone with teeth like hers. But when my thoughts started to wander further down her spine and between her legs, I caught myself, shook it off, and looked into her emerald eyes. I started, because I couldn't remember giving me anything. I remembered seeing her walk out of the ocean, her pearly white dress wrapping itself around her like mist, but that was as much as I remembered. "I gave you a gift," she said. "You're beautiful," I blushed as I said the words, realizing the weight of my words against hers. She took my hand then, placed it on the cold skin of her chest, and she didn't seem to mind that my hand wandered up to her neck, caressing her, and when it wandered down again, I felt the softness of the pearls underneath my fingertips. She was covered in them. "You're not like the others," she said, took firm hold of my hand, guiding it to her mouth, where she proceeded to suck on my finger. "Do you seduce all your victims?" I asked quietly. "Only those I like the most," she giggled and kissed me. Her hand caressed my body in that slow, deliberate way of hers, kissed her back, and everything else vanished from my mind, everything but her beauty and her teeth. When she withdrew, I felt a sense of panic form in me. I had to either break her spell, or vanish into it forever. I had a life, though it wasn't ideal. Work had been exciting once upon a time, but had lost its luster. My relationships were all short and often ended in a disaster. It wasn't great, but it was still a life, and it was mine, with all the hopes and dreams a human being can muster up. She would give me uncertainty, and a world full of stars and pearls and silver kisses. But she would bring forth something else too, something I was afraid of. Something that was lurking underneath that promise of hers. I love you, I told her. No, you don't, she said. But maybe you will when you get to know me. She grinned, and for a moment there was something absolutely humane about her. Something ever so intimate, extravagant, and tame at the same time. Can I come with you? I asked. When I met you, I gave you something, she said. Are you here to repay me? I don't know what you gave me, I told her sheepishly. I can't remember. No, I guess you wouldn't, she sighed. And I knew then that I was lost, that I would never recover from this. She turned away from me and walked into the sea. I'm glad you came. Come to me when you remember what it is that I gave you, she said. Come back when you recall. I watched her walk away and vanish into the sea, her pearly dress shining wildly. She walked ever so slowly down the moon path, and then she dove into the sea. The last I saw of her was her tail flapping out of the ocean, as if she was swimming by to get a last look. I stood on that shore for a long time, grieving a missed opportunity, angry at myself for not being able to remember what it was he had given me. I stood there with the wind in my hair, my feelings on display, tears running slowly down my cheek, furious at myself for not recalling. All I wanted was for her to come back. She had enticed and charmed me, but there was a darkness about her and this place. I looked back towards the pier and the diner. The neon sign was blinking softly, but it had changed. It no longer said seafood and cocktails. Instead, it seemed to shiver, then shine brightly and blink in and out of existence time and again. The words at first jumbled, wrote, "Abandon all hope." I knew what I had to do. Walking into the sea wasn't hard. The steps were freeing. The sound of the waves sang courage into my soul. I walked until I felt my feet tingling and my skin crawling, and I knew that I would become one of her pawns. She had given me life long ago, when I was too young to understand the consequences of my actions. She had walked out of the sea for me, with me in her arms, and she had held me to safety, breathing life into me as she did. Wait for me, I whispered as the moon smiled brightly down upon me, and the stars seemed to flicker quietly out of existence. If wishes were fishes, I found myself singing, we'd all cast nests in the sea. That was the first story, the Aquarius story of the seafood and cocktails, the Zodiac collection. It's on Amazon if you want it. Have a great weekend. Catch you later. Bye-bye.